Hey, how's it going, guys? Jack and Matt here with the Toasty Bros, and today we're going to be doing a $650 gaming PC.
This thing's going to be pretty solid for the money, and we're going to be testing out a new graphics card from AMD in the process. But before we get into that, let's hear a word from today's sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by PICTEK and their RGB gaming keyboard featuring blue mechanical switches, a spill-resistant design, and a detachable wrist rest. If you're looking for a budget-friendly RGB gaming keyboard that doesn't slack in the specs department, this keyboard has you covered. Be sure to use the link in the description down below because you can save 30% off today during PICTEK's gaming setup sale. Special thanks again to PICTEK for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get into the PC build, shall we?
So big thanks to AMD and Corsair for sending over a graphics card in a case.
We're going to be building a PC that's designed to do 1080p gaming, high settings, using a Ryzen 3 2200G, which we'll talk about more about the parts in just a moment. But one thing we have to get out of the way, if for some reason you're shopping for this PC right now and you're looking to put this thing together and the Ryzen 5 1600AF is in stock, buy that thing instead. It'll perform better, it's cheaper, it's a great option to consider, and we'll have that link in the description down below as well. So do keep that in mind when doing this build, but at the time when we were parting this together, that thing was out of stock and we didn't know if it was going to come back. So do keep that in mind as we go over each part, which we're going to do right now.
So what we have here in this box is not actually a Ryzen 5. This is a Ryzen 3 2200G. So this is still a really good processor. You can get them on eBay for around 70 bucks, give or take. We did get this one with the fan and everything, so that's good to go. And you know, as far as we know, it's not like heavily used, but you know, we'll find out once we actually put it in the system. And as Matt said, if you guys can get the 1600AF in stock, definitely go with that because instead of getting a quad-core APU, you're getting a 6-core 12-thread CPU. So, you know, if you can find that, definitely go for that. For the motherboard, this is not anything new. This is the Gigabyte B450M DS3H. So this is a micro ATX motherboard. It's a really good board. We never had a single issue with them. The Ryzen 3000 ready. So, you know, if you did want to go with the 1600 or even 3600, just really any 3rd gen Ryzen or 1st or 2nd gen, it'll work for all of those. For the RAM, we have Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4. We have 16 gigs at 3000 megahertz. This is actually a really good value kit. Some of the prices and some of the links that we end up using might be different down below because we did get these parts a little bit ago and prices have gone up on a lot of things. So we might try to kind of make things a little bit more budget oriented while still having the same type of performance.
And speaking of that graphics card that I talked about at the beginning of the video, this is the AMD Radeon 5500 XT. Now this basically slots in at around the RX 580 level of graphics card at around $179. So if you're considering something like the 580 and maybe you're scared to buy used, this would be a great card to consider, which you know we absolutely love the RX 580. So this is going to be a great card. Now this only comes with 4 gigs of VRAM, so if you're looking at like a 584 gig, you could probably save a little bit of money going used. But you know, we wanted to try this card out and AMD sent it over and we're excited to see how it performs in some of our favorite games. And as for storage, we went with the Silicon Power 512GB M.2 SSD. Now SSD storage might be going up here soon with a issue going on in the world right now, but this storage device is going to be great for installing Windows, being able to install a couple of games without any problems, and it's, well, M.2, so you don't have to worry about having extra SATA cables running around. It makes the build overall so much cleaner. That's the main reason why we go with these drives nowadays as opposed to standard 2.5 inch, so highly suggest you consider this for your next build, even if you're not building this one. And guess what? We're using the exact same power supply that we use in a lot of our builds. This is the Thermaltake Smart 500 watt power supply. You could go with something like 450 watts if you want to save a little bit of money. They do have a 430 watt version that is normally a little bit cheaper and would be more than enough to power this build, but we went with 500 watts for upgradability in the future and just a little bit of extra headroom. This is a really solid, well-built power supply that has decent cables that allow us to build a really clean looking system, and we highly suggest considering if you're buying a power supply off Amazon. Now for the case. Corsair was nice enough to send over their 275R Airflow, which has this very interesting pattern up front that we kind of were interested in trying out. Our rep over at Corsair was nice enough to send this over real quick for this PC build, so special thanks to you for helping us out. And we're going to be decking this thing out with a 6-pack of up here RGB fans. So you know how we love our RGB, especially budget RGB, when you can get it for like 30 bucks. It's going to add a lot of flair to this PC build, and I think it's going to look really nice with this pattern up front to see the RGB glow through. So I'm very excited to build it in this case and put this system together and see how it performs for $650. Let's do it.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have this PC all put together, let's go ahead and talk about those benchmarks real quick. Now, I do have to get one thing out of the way. The Ryzen 3 2200G. It's a good processor, right? And we actually picked up this thing on the used market for around $40, but for the sake of this video, we wanted to use real world pricing, and that was, well, around $100 for a new 2200G, and if you did want to use used pricing, I would say a fair value would be around $60, which would make this build more like a $600 gaming PC, but we wanted to be a little bit fair to you guys. So, the performance numbers for a $650 PC, definitely not worth it, especially when there's the Ryzen 5 1600AF on the market. So if you take one thing from this video, if you're building a new PC, if for some reason the Ryzen 5 1600AF is in stock, pair it with the 5500 XT and you'll have yourself an awesome system. Don't even worry about going with the 2200G unless you get a really good deal on the used market like we did, because that system should be valued more around $550, $600 as opposed to being, well, $650. The 2200G was definitely no slouch though. In Modern Warfare, it performed very well. You could definitely tell in most of the games that we tested that the 2200G was the main bottleneck. Same thing for other games that we tested like Fortnite. You do notice that there is a CPU bottleneck, but the 5500 XT is actually pretty impressive. The only issue I have with the 5500 XT is its price. Now, it does perform on par with some of the RX 580 4GB that are on the market, which by all means is a great card. It's a great card to go with, especially on the used market, but you got to keep in mind it's 2020 here, and if these cards came in a little bit cheaper and more competitive than what the RX 580 goes for or the RX 570 goes for, then at around $160 this would be a no-brainer. But at the $180 to like $200 mark sometimes, with some like issues with stock and stuff like that, it's kind of a hard sell, but it doesn't make it a bad card overall. I still love the performance you're getting for your dollar. I just wish it was a little bit cheaper, because if it was, I feel like a lot of people will be recommending this card as opposed to offering that you go up to another tier as opposed to going with the 5500 XT. But overall, I was actually very impressed with this PC. I do believe if you go with the 1600 AF, you would get more performance, and that could be a really good option for you if you are looking to buy the system now. But if you do end up going to the 2200G and spending less than $650, I think you have yourself a really awesome gaming PC for the money. So how about we go ahead and bring in Jackson real quick and we can wrap this video up.
So as you guys can tell, the system actually did pretty good for it being all new parts minus the 2200G. We did use new pricing on it because, you know, getting a 2200G used, a lot of you aren't going to want to do with everything else being brand new. Now, of course, for around the price of being like $110-ish, you could get the 1600 AF right now, which is a 6-core 12-thread, and honestly would be a lot better in this because this quad core, in 2020, it seems like it was having a little bit of difficulties, and the 5500 XT was actually like only at 60% most of the times, while the 2200G was at 100% usage.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind. The 2200G by no means is a bad processor, but when you're talking about like a $600 build, you know, you could probably get a little extra performance by going with something like the 1600. You can always cut back to maybe 8 gigs of RAM, but even that is kind of pushing it nowadays. You really want to go with 16 gigs if you can. So this build is still really solid, cannot complain, especially if the 2200G used for around $50, $60, $70. You really can't complain because now you're talking about a $550 to $600 build that's actually really awesome for the money. But overall, we're impressed with this build. We really like this case from Corsair. It has a very interesting design up front, and airflow is definitely a part of this case. We didn't really experience any temperature issues with this build. And of course, those up here RGB fans are a great option, especially if you're looking to add RGB to your budget system for your next build.
Once again, big thanks to AMD and Corsair for sending over these really awesome parts. Like we said, we really enjoyed them and honestly made for a really nice build. On a serious note though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you guys can see all of our latest and greatest videos, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Goodbye. Links down below, affiliate links.
They give us money.
Pay us money. Money.
Just donate us.